So what I'm going to be doing here now is just adding a few little touches of light blue up in my sky. I've got this kind of turquoise color happening, and I'm kind of at a point in my painting where I feel like I don't want to add too much. So now it's really kind of dealing more with I'm going to put a few dots of color in here for the lupins, maybe a few little lines in here to show a little bit more detail with those flowers, but really not very much. I'll be using a very thin brush. Even with the butterfly, I'm actually very pleased with really the way that looks. Maybe a few little touches of white in those areas, so where the dots are. So what I'm doing is I'm just loading up my palette knife, but not really putting very much on it. You can see how that's gathering. And I'm just going to pick a few spots and kind of just say, okay, I want some actual blue to come in there. See how that there just adds a bit of a pop. It's interest, right? Same with up around the sun. So depending on how much paint you want to come out on your canvas or whatever you're painting on, that's a fair dollop of that blue. And I want it to be kind of thick and impasto there, so I'm going to go in between those lines, and I'm just going to bring in a line here too. See that? Just a little bit of interest without going overboard. So it's kind of a bit of a, you gotta be careful with it that you don't go too far. But those few little spots are kind of just adding a little bit of visual interest for me, right? And if I wanted to put another sort of cloud shape up here, I could do that too, and I could go in with a darker color, right? So it's just breaking up that teal color a little bit, so it's not quite as much teal. Will I put much more? No, very little. Just maybe another couple lines right here, right? Let that, as some of my friends like to say, spread it like toast. Spread it like butter, on your toast. I could go in and put a few little spots on the butterfly itself, but I kind of like the look of that, and I don't want to overdo it. Now, if I wanted to just bring in a couple lines up over that cloud, so I'm going to use a brush, and I'm just kind of, lightly letting that dance. Not pushing super hard most of the time. So just outline that area there, and maybe I'll put a little bit above this cloud. I'm not even worried about it coming right up to the white or the cream color, because it kind of works to not do that, Maybe I would see a little bit of a outline here on the butterfly where the head is there, and I could probably bring in a couple lines just to show like an energy, a movement. And I'm big on that, so I'm not using a great deal. The harder you press, the thicker that line's going to be. So if I push harder, it widens out, and if I press softer, it tends to be a thinner. Look at that, a nice thin line, right? Now I might say I kind of like this blue, and it's a nice tying point, so I think instead of using white on those dots, I'm actually going in and I'm adding the blue instead, because it's kind of a tying. I like how it's tying in with the sky instead of using just white. If I wanted to, I could sort of mute these down with a little bit of white so they're not quite as blue. But honestly, I actually like the way that that's tying in. What do you think? I like that. So I'm working my way around. You don't have to go over everyone if you don't want to, but you can. But really, I'm still leaving a little bit of that cream color exposed. Going in on these guys too, these little reflections. Put a little bit there, a little bit up here. It's just another way to paint expressively, so that looks really cool. And just leaving a little bit of that color underneath, This style of painting is, we're not trying to capture realism, we're trying to, just to be able to express. So I'm not worried about if it looks exactly like a monarch butterfly. But you know what? I think it looks pretty cool. I think, there wouldn't be any question of what it is, You might even want to go in on a few of those little spots and add a few lines in on those, on the wings. I think that's kind of cool. Now, I'm kind of haphazardly choosing where that is. I'm not really going everywhere, right? It's giving it a bit more of an expressive sort of quality, So, kind of would love to see prints of this. I think it would be interesting. Let me know your thoughts. Do you think this would make a cool piece? Some people are really afraid of insects, and I mean, there are people even afraid of butterflies. I have to tell you that I love butterflies. Butterflies, for me, remind me of my father. When I see them, my father's been passed now for almost 15 years, and I miss him dearly. He was a big supporter of what I did, a champion for all these things that I wanted to do in my life, and I can't thank him enough for that he was willing to, say, you can do this. And it's great to have a mother that's very supportive, and my in-laws that are very supportive as well, always asking like, oh, how did this week go? Did you sell anything this week, or you keep them busy? And so they're all concerned. They want the best for us, and that's why I've been hitting hard. See that? Isn't that cool? I'm also, if you notice, I'm resting my pinky. This is dry now, so it's not completely cured. It's apparently about 8 days for acrylic paint to cure, but it's now like tacky, and it won't smudge. Whereas if I had just painted all this in the wings, I would have smudged it many times by now, right? So it's pretty cool. So I can kind of rest my pinky and work in areas. So that's really neat. I'm going around some of these flowers too, just to kind of show, that there's expression around those flowers. I'm all about that. I'm one of those people, I kind of love when paintings do that. And I'm just looking, sort of stepping back, not being overly crazy with the amount of lines I'm doing, but it just kind of makes those shapes pop a bit more, What I'm going to do then is I'm going to go with sort of a black mixed with another sort of mauve, old mauve it's called, and I'm just going to add in a few dark spots as well. So I want to put some lines on these lupins, so I'm going to do it so that the top part of each lupin is obviously lighter, and it's going to work down to sort of more of a darkish purpley mauve color. I'm just using that part of my brush. Leave some of the dark area underneath so that it kind of shows dimension and depth. Right, so I've worked my way down. Now I'm going to add in a little bit of that color. I'm going to add a little bit of that old mauve, if you can see that. I'm going to just mix that color to get a sort of a middle tone with what I've already got there, that blue. Okay? So I'm going in now, and if you can see that, I'm just going to start mixing it sort of together like that, and you can see that I'm making another kind of tone. Okay, now that's still a little too close to the other one for my liking, so I'll bring in some more of the old mauve. Okay, I'm just going there like that, and then I'm just going to come in and I'm just going to start adding some of that there, maybe overlapping a little bit from what's above it. Okay, so I'm using that sort of mid-tone, going overlap a tiny little bit in a few spots. Okay, same with down here. I don't want this to take the focus from the butterfly. The butterfly obviously is the center point of that. You might want to bring that color up a little bit, up into your sky. See that? Just that little bit there is I think really lovely. You can do a lot with a little, and it doesn't need to be detailed, because what happens is our mind is kind of filling in the blanks, and that's how Impressionism worked, really. was that it was able to kind of fill in the blanks for us. So I'm just putting a few little spots here on these red flowers with that in-between color. So just a little bit in here. So I'm just kind of making indications of petals and stuff, but I'm not going in with great detail. Okay? You might want to put a little bit of that sort of middle tone, mix it down a little bit darker. You might want, over this cloud over here, you might want to go, you know, and add that so that you can really see that there's a cloud forming back there, you know? But really, the sky's the limit. You know, you do what you feel works for you. So that little area of interest over there. Okay, so now I'm just going to give my brush a little swish, making coffee water over here. Just doing this. Okay, now I'm going right into this. So that's that old mauve, which is, you know, lovely, rich, magenta-ish red. And I'm going back into my lupins, and that colors the bottom part, and I'm allowing some of it, like I said, to spill into the midtones. Not a lot, leaving some of that dark green underneath. Okay, I think that works really well. Okay, so I'm in here and I'm working my way up, being very, you know, loose with it. See that? Isn't that lovely? Okay. Up here on the bottom of those clouds, I kind of envision that there's a few of these darker lines too. Okay, so I'm just going in very lightly, kind of selectively picking a few things. Okay, same thing over here, like so, like that. Okay, just loading up the brush. So now we've got a nice sort of overall thing happening. I want to get a little bit of this flesh color because I want to actually get a few more highlights into those peachy colored flowers. Lay this down for a second. I have another desk downstairs for bigger stuff, but this is my little space in my my studio that's sort of an all-purpose space. So I'm gonna mix with that peach some of that color I just had. Okay, so I'm wanting it to be closer to peach and not red. So bringing that together until I feel that that's a nice color. And then I'm just kind of going in and just adding a few little things here and there, right? So this is just on those flowers. Okay. A little bit down there. A little bit up here, right? And now we're starting to get somewhere with that sort of darker tone. I'm actually going to put a few lines up around our sun up here, so it's kind of like if there's a bit of a shadow behind there. Okay, so we're going like so. I might say that there's another cloud back there. Okay, very impressionistic, right? I just put my finger in something, but that's okay. Right. So you're getting a little bit of, you know, different shades and shadowing happening there. And that's really fun. I think that works out really well. So now the only other flowers are these yellow ones. And I don't know. I think I'm going to, instead of using another color yellow, I think I'm just going to use peach as those highlight spots on this one. So you know, you got a little bit in here, like so. So you're just getting a little bit of that yellow because the yellow is kind of crazy. It takes over. So I'm just going in here, like so. Right? Maybe I will go and add a little yellow. I'm not 100% sure about that yet. Okay? Not so certain about that one. Maybe. I mean, it's sort of just to be a wash of flowers, so it can work. A little bit of that peach as well. I have blue on my finger because I stuck it in that up there. So what I'm going to do, I'll fix that in a second, but I'm going to go in with a little bit of that peach for that upper part. So we're going in here, just adding a little bit of that in there. Okay, still seeing a little bit of the blue, but not very much. Okay, one of the tricks too is if you're having a hard time going over thicker paint, well, you got to put thicker paint on thicker paint. So like, see that? I'm able to go over that blue section that's still a little bit wet. Oh, well. Gotta get my palette knife. And then that blue section that I kind of smudged a little bit, I can easily just take that and just pull that out. Right? Put a little bit up there. So, you know, you're working with it. You're just having fun. And at this point, I mean, there's really not a ton that I want to do with it. You know, I really do like the way it looks, and I don't want to get to a point that it's overplayed. And that's sort of the fine line that all of us artists work on. And it's like, how far can I take this before I've gone too far? Before I've worked it too far? And that's a very, very easy thing to do, that we get to that overworked stage. So today was really just adding in a few of these final touches for this painting, this commission piece. So the only other thing is, I think I'll get a little bit of another yellow, and I might touch it up a little bit. So in the final painting, it may change a little bit. So before I do that, I just want to talk about signing your work. So signing your work, where do you sign? I mean, typically, most artists sign on the left or right side on the bottom. Now, I've seen people sign on the back. I've seen people sign on the side. Some people might even just have like a symbol or whatever. Now, in this piece here, there's an awful lot going on down here, and I don't really want to stick a signature in this area. There's a lot of action. But if we look over at the left-hand side, there's really not much. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use that peachy color to sign this. Now, I'm using a pretty thin brush, right? The same one I was using for the dots and stuff and some of those lines. And I'm just going to, you know, pick a corner and sort of bring it in here. And the harder I push, the thicker the lettering is going to be. So I'm really trying not to push hard. Going back, and I'm going to have to like add a little bit of paint pretty much on every letter. So I'm going in here. The beauty of signing over dried paint is it's a lot easier to get a much more crystally clear letter, as opposed to when it kind of blobs together, right? So I've always signed my paintings this way because my uncle, my great uncle, Roy Martin, was a painter as well, and he always signed his paintings R. Martin. So, you know, when I got back into it in 2018, I said, you know what, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to sign my work sort of in a tribute to my great uncle, who he really was great. Everything he did so well. And so it's a little tribute to Uncle Roy. So we've got here, like so. You know, you can go over if you find it's too light. Some artists really want their signature to be super hidden. I actually don't mind. I kind of think of my signature as part of the art. That's just the way I feel about it. And I know I've had people say, why do you sign so big? Or why do you sign in such a bright color? And I'm just like, it's just the thing I do. I don't think it's wrong if you do it a different way. But I also don't think it's wrong to do it this way. Right? So we're going here. So I do the 2 like that, and then the 5 comes in like so, and tucks in like that. Right, so we've pretty much got this done. So we've signed it, we've added some touches today, but in my mind, this is a finished piece. Just a little bit of maybe in the yellows, and do something there. So I hope you've enjoyed kind of sitting here with me, and I'll let you see it at the end once it's framed and ready to go to its new home. So thanks for hanging out with me for a little bit. So I want to just jump back in for one little second, show you where I've put in some little yellow highlights, and I'm just going to add a couple little highlights up around That was a little too wet, so I'm going to go back in. Sometimes the brush is still a little too wet, but I don't want it to be gobby. And just a little bit of a highlight on those antennae. So like so, and a little bit kind of coming over here too. Just to show a glow there on the top of the butterfly. A little tiny bit of yellow, and over that blue is too, so. Okay, just a little bit. Trying our best not to get right in on top of wet paint. Okay, a little bit right here. Okay, just to show that tiny little bit of a glow around the top of the butterfly. So it's signed, and now all that needs to be done is that this was on a little bit of a larger canvas board, and the frame that we just found was 11 by 14, and I thought it would be perfect for this piece. So what I'll do now is this will be cut to fit the frame. So it worked out really well. So I hope you enjoyed, and thank you again, and love from Northside Studios.